All right, video 3 of 3. So in this video, we're going to sketch the graph of y equals tangent of pi x. We're going to sketch one complete cycle. So we need to figure out not just what one period is, but also we need to figure out two consecutive vertical asymptotes. So we can fit one entire cycle in between two vertical lines that we're not allowed to cross. So it's really important that we set up an inequality. So we start with an inequality where the two endpoints, the beginning and the end of the inequality, are two places where the regular tangent function is not defined, two consecutive numbers where it's not defined, the regular tan function. And so the easiest ones to use are negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. So we set up the inequality. Negative pi over 2 is less than the argument, pi x, is less than positive pi over 2. So remember, even though we know that the tangent function, the period, is pi, we can't use the interval from 0 to pi, because halfway between 0 and pi is this number pi over 2 where the tangent isn't even defined. So that means that you would be crossing a vertical asymptote. You'd be crossing one of those boundaries that you're not supposed to cross. So we start with an interval where we can get a whole cycle in there and not cross any vertical lines. So we start with negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2 because those are two consecutive vertical asymptotes and we don't have to cross any of them. All right, so now to solve this for x, we just divide everything by x. Divide everything by pi, which is the same as multiplying by 1 over pi. So after you cancel a bunch of pi's, then you're left with negative 1/2 is less than x is less than positive 1/2. So that's going to be your new interval for one cycle, but also you've got your two vertical asymptotes. So the first one is going to be the first vertical asymptote is going to be x equals negative 1/2, and the second one is x equals positive 1/2. So yeah, I just wrote them in the wrong order, but that's okay. So when we get ready to sketch the graph, we'll sketch those two vertical lines first, so it'll help us guide the graph. But also, let's just find the period. So the period is the length of that cycle. So it's 1/2 minus negative 1/2. So it's 1/2 plus 1/2, which is just 1. So the period turns out to be 1. All right, we're ready to sketch the graph. And we start by just sketching those two vertical asymptotes. So there's one at x equals negative 1/2. That's the actual equation of that line. And the other one is x equals positive 1/2. And then the only key point we ever really have, the only interesting point for the tangent is the place where it intersects the x-axis, which is in this one, is in all of them, it's always halfway between two vertical asymptotes. So here I've plotted the point 0, 0. That's halfway in between negative 1/2 and positive 1/2. And then I just sketch the classic tangent curve. And that's how you do it. All right, carry on, have fun, and we'll see each other in class.